But just in that context, one final sort of question Bilal Saab had was the issue of Islamic teachings on human rights in relation particularly to minorities. And he then also asked, and those you consider not to be on the right path. I would sort of caveat that question by it makes a presumption, and for all our viewers, not at all are we suggesting that anyone who isn't Muslim or everyone who is Muslim is always on the straight path, not at all. But I think there's two sort of elements to this. What is the Islamic sort of injunctions and teachings on human rights in relation to how non-Muslims should be dealt with under an Islamic state? And also, I suppose it's a very broad question, but those who aren't on the right path, reformation is ultimately the answer that Islam gives for everyone.
Well, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UN Charter, I mean, that only came into being in 1948. And it is interesting how all the articles of that charter have their foundations in the Holy Quran and in the life of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Islam is that religion who actually introduced a full charter of human rights for mankind to follow, so that social justice and social peace would always be implemented and be brought into society. It is also interesting that just dwelling on the subject of human rights as far as religious freedom is concerned, and we have no better example than the life of the Holy Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we see clearly in Medina, for instance, when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are instances where we can see that the pact that he made, for instance in Medina, the Charter of Tolerance, the second condition of that pact was that people would have religious freedom despite Muslims being in the majority. So this is guaranteeing the followers of other faiths who were in minority that they would have absolute freedom to practice their faith as they wished. Then he, as we know, permitted the Christians of Najran who came to him to actually use his mosque to pray in that mosque. Now actually they faced eastwards to pray when they were in that mosque, and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ felt that this should not have been allowed, you know, and the Prophet just smiled and he said, no, that is fine, they are permitted to do that. So that is again giving tolerance and human rights as far as religious expression is concerned. And then the letter of immunity that the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave to these people of Najran, that is interesting to read. The letter of immunity that was given to them, he undertook the responsibility of protection of the boundaries of the Christians. It was an obligation of Muslims to protect their churches, their inns and their places of worship, no matter where they were located, whether they were nearby in cities or whether they were in woods. It was for the Muslims to ensure their protection in that respect. So in all of that we can see that this was the religious tolerance and this was the freedom that was given to followers of other faiths who were in the minority, so that they could practice their faith as they wished.